Hey, good morning, everybody, and welcome back to Focused on Fins. It is Christmas Eve, and we're live, and we've got plenty to dive into today. Dolphins talk, prospects to watch, and whatever you guys want to throw our way in the chat. I am Eric Smith, and as always, I'm joined by my guy, Anthony Testino. Merry Christmas Eve, man. How are you feeling this morning? Do you guys generally have everything done by Christmas, well, Christmas Eve, right? Or is this a day to relax for you, or are you still mad dash to get everything done before the big holiday?
No, we're usually pretty set up. My wife, absolutely loves Christmas. So, I mean, the second, Thanksgiving is over, it's Christmas. I mean, every day is a Christmas movie. There's no other option, and if you try one, you're in trouble. And, the tree goes up and the decorations come out, and she's like, I mean, she starts Christmas shopping in, like, August. So, no, we're pretty much all set over here. How about you, buddy? Merry Christmas.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, we enjoy Christmas. We're not a everyday type Christmas people like your wife, but no, we got everything done, finished up shopping and wrapping last night. Got some family coming over tomorrow, so today's kind of a cleaning day, chill day. Probably gonna take the family out and go check out some Christmas lights tonight. Is usually our Christmas Eve tradition. There's a nice place down the road that has a nice drive through setup that we'll go through. But I'm sure we'll get more into how Christmas went next week when we talk again. But for this week, you know, stuff we want to talk about, right? The Bengals game, the Buccaneers game, talk about a couple of college and NFL prospects is something we're going to start to try to do on this channel while we also, continue to take viewer questions as they come in. But let's start with the Bengals game. In some ways, it's kind of nice in the holiday season to not be stressing about where the Dolphins are gonna, be playoff wise. We know where they are. And in the first half of the game, they came out and played okay. Second half, wheels fell off and really brought into question how hard some of these players are playing. But the big thing I want to talk about the Bengals game is what your opinion of Quinn Ewers was in this game. And for me, I put a tweet out there after the game and said, did Quinn Ewers really give us the best chance to win? And it was funny how split those responses were, and it probably shouldn't be surprised with the way the Dolphins fan base is. Um, but like my biggest thing was Mike McDaniel saying that, like coming out and Mike McDaniel saying that Quinn Ewers gives the 2025 Dolphins the best chance to win. I don't, I didn't believe it at all. Like, there's no way that you can convince me that Quinn Ewers couldn't even win the number 2 spot, and then suddenly he is now the gives us the best chance to win. Like, I would have much rather him come in and say, you know, the this you can't say the season is over, right? But you are at a point in the season where you need to start seeing what some of these guys have. And to just be honest, you want to see what Quinn Ewers has over these last few weeks. And I didn't, I wasn't real high or real low on the performance itself. A seventh round rookie, kind of what I expected. I mean, that very first play comes out and passes up his first read, double clutches. It was nice to see him not take a sack there and give Darren Waller a chance. But I didn't feel he got a whole lot better from there. He looked like a seventh round rookie quarterback, and it'll be interesting to see this week, right? And hopefully just had the rookie jitters, got some of that stuff out of his system, and comes out this week a lot more confident. And it'll be interesting to see if he does, like, if we get the same performance again, do they then give Zach Wilson the week 17 game to see what he has for a game? Like, I don't know. So I was not, I Quinn Ewers did nothing for me to make me think that he is a good option to be the starting quarterback next year, right? If you're going to blow it up and bring a couple of mid-range guys in, right? Maybe he's part of that competition, but there is nothing that he did to steer me away from any quarterback in the free agent or draft market. But also didn't do anything to say that he couldn't be a future number 2 quarterback for a long time in this league, which would be a solid result for a 7th round pick. But what did you think of the Bengals game, and more specifically Quinn Ewers?
Yeah, so with Quinn, I thought he kind of looked like what I expected, right? I don't think it was terrible. I don't think it was great. I don't think it answered any questions. Right. Again, and how much are you really going to find out in 3 games? Yeah, I mean, he would have to do something pretty miraculous in order to be like, oh my gosh, this is the guy in 3 games. So I think realistically, you're getting a look. I think Miami is kind of quietly, I don't want to use the T word, but I agree with you. There's no way in hell that you think that Quinn Ewers gives the Miami Dolphins the best chance to win, regardless of how Tua was playing. Because you've seen Tua kind of snap out of it and light it up on a random Sunday. I don't think you're going to have that with Quinn. You're going to kind of have just right good throws, good things that he does really well in that offense that he's done, a bunch of times because they ran the kind of similar stuff at Texas. And then there's going to be plays that he looks like the 7th round rookie, right? So, yeah, again, just what I expected, and overall, I hope I'm rooting for him. Like you and I on the same page with Tua. We see that whole debacle and just timeline. I think very similarly. But obviously, again, Dolphins fan. Like if Quinn wants to go out and throw for 450 the next 2 weeks and say this job is mine, like please, by all means, do it. Again, don't necessarily see that happening though. But again, if he can kind of prove like, hey, I'm worthy of being here, I deserve a roster spot, that kind of thing, then great. But again, I'm with you as well that it does not change my plans as far as knowing that we need to go, and go bring in a couple guys next year. And then as far as just the game in general, yeah, I mean, I thought in the beginning they looked like they were playing, looked like maybe it was going to be a high scoring back and forth game, which then would have got real interesting with Quinn. But, everybody kind of points to that big H-hand play that got called back, and all of a sudden it was just demoralized. And then also the typical third quarter woes that this team has been troubled by all year, and it fell apart. And then I also included this a little bit like in my breakdown for the defense. I actually thought they quit. I thought Anthony Weaver had kind of said no. That's not what's on tape. I don't know. I kind of beg to differ a little bit, but that's just my personal opinion. And we tipped our cap quite a bit, this year to them being resilient, not quitting, and same thing to Mike McDaniel, right? Hey, he's keeping these guys together. I do actually think that they quit on Sunday, though, and to me that was interesting just because of the timing of the quarterback thing, right? So it's kind of like, all right, well, I want to see what happens this week because if they don't show up, Tampa Bay can hang 40 on you as well, and it could get real ugly if you guys are not going to play ball. So, again, if that happens, does that say something about how they feel? Or is it just end of the year, we're out of the playoffs, we don't care, So, yeah, there's some intrigue there. I'm curious to see kind of how it goes and the body language of these guys.
Yeah, I think that I agree completely with the way that you saw the body language in that game and some of the effort that you saw. One thing that I was watching the assistant coach's media availabilities this morning before we hopped on here, and one of the questions to Anthony Weaver was about the idea of playing spoiler. And like it kind of got me thinking, like when you're playing the Bengals, like even if you beat the Bengals, what do you really gain from it, right?
Yeah.
You don't is the answer to that. But when you're playing the Buccaneers, right, you do have the chance to play spoiler, right? You do have something that you can find a reason to play, right? And whether the season's over or not, like these guys are auditioning, right? Whether it is for the current interim GM the Dolphins have or the new GM that they end up with, or these guys that are on 1-year contracts auditioning for their next contract, right? These are important games for a lot of these guys, and they have to find a reason to get up and play. If not, then it says a lot about where the culture is with this team and how much they lied to us about it again. But so on that topic, heading into the Buccaneers game, one of the topics that I had on here was snaps up, snaps down. Like, who do you want to see either get a lot more snaps or a lot less? And I'll give you one each for me. And snaps down for me is going to be Iffy Melifonwu. Like that touchdown run, I had posted a video of it. Like he did not step up at all. He has looked this season a lot like a cornerback trying to play safety. And that's what he is. Like that, he was a corner coming out. They moved him to safety. I thought that he was more physical than what he has shown this
I
year.
agree.
But in
Mhm.
addition to not being very physical, the effort just didn't feel like it was there. So I would like to see. I mean, not that Ashton Davis is putting great tape out there, but I feel like Ashton Davis's effort is better than what Melifonwu's has been. And Dante Trader, right? You got to continue to see what you have there. Similar idea to the Quinn Ewers thing, right? You want to see what you have, right? You know what you have in some of these other guys. And then the player that I want to see snaps up on, and I don't think it's going to happen, but Andrew Meyer for 2 years has been on this roster and has not played in a regular season game. He is back on the 53, right? Why not let him play for Cole Strange this week, right? And we'll get to the Pro Bowl stuff later, right? But the the deal is sealed as far as what Aaron Brewer is getting recognition wise. If you are playing Andrew Meyer at center, give him a game at center, right? I think it was Omar Kelly who talked about how beat up Aaron Brewer has been, that
Yeah.
he is, barely able to walk after games. And I applaud him for that. Like, I love players that are willing to do that, right? But this is a guy that is probably part of the long term plans for the Dolphins and Aaron Brewer. So don't get him out there and possibly have him injure something further when you have a young guy that you have shown the fan base with what you've done that you have a lot of optimism in him. So give Andrew Meyer a game or two, right? Get a little bit of game experience under his belt so that if we need him next year, then you have that. So those are the two guys that I have in terms of stock up, stock down. Do you have anybody on those lists?
No, I like those guys. But yeah, you know what? One like I keep seeing Benito pop up, and just there's just bad reps, and it just annoys me. And I'm wondering why, just why, and why at all. I'd like to just see the young guys out there. I mean, there's between the three young guys and Zach, there's enough of a rotation there. I think that you can survive 65 plays without Benito. So that would be one, just because again, like I like Benito. I was actually one like in the off season that I was like, that's just a cheap guy to bring back, and he gave you better than you thought. So like I wanted them to bring him back for that reason, because I thought he outplayed like expectations. Not that they were super high, but it just made sense, right? But at this point now, like give me the young guys. And then again, it's a weird one just because I know HN is probably after numbers and whatnot, and the contract and all that kind of stuff. I get it, but in a perfect world, I would love to see Ollie Gordon, and I would love to see Jalen Wright split the workload and both of them get 15 carries a game. Again, in a perfect world, probably not going to happen. And then the other one too, I'll sneak in this last one is I'd like to see Taj Washington be active. Like I get it, the Theo Weiss thing. There's a connection there. He's a bigger body. I got to be honest though. I'm a receiver guy, and I didn't love him, and still kind of don't. I'm much more intrigued by Taj Washington, so that would be another one that I'd like to see just even be active on game day.
Yeah, I like the Taj Washington thing because it seemed like, after he had that fumble in the Baltimore game that they completely shut it down.
Gone.
They're like, yeah, you're never
Hmm.
touching the ball again type deal. So, at
Makes
this
no
point in the
sense.
season, right, he has shown flashes. So, why not give him a shot again? There's nothing you can hurt worse than it is at this point. And that kind of what you had said about HN kind of rolls into my next topic, and that's just a couple of other things that guys should be playing hard for over these last 2 weeks. We have Jalen Waddle is sitting at 910 yards receiving. Um, there was a lot made of his first 3 seasons being going over 1,000 yards, then last year not making it to 1,000 yards. So I think it's big for him to get over 1,000 yards again. Especially in a scenario where next year we're all assuming that Tyreek Hill is not going to be here, right? And unless you go out and you draft another, a stud receiver in round one, then Jalen Waddle is your number one receiver heading into next year, almost certainly. So it'd be nice to see him, you know, get over that number, hopefully a good bit over that number. I mean, 90 yards over 2 games should not be too much to ask for somebody that you want to be a number one receiver last year. And then you said about Achan and wanting to, chase some numbers there. So he's sitting at 1,267 yards rushing and 459 yards receiving.
Third, right?
Sounds right, but I was just looking at individually, like getting to that 1,000 yard rushing and 500 yards receiving is a significant milestone. He's sitting at 1,726 yards total. Getting to that 2,000 yards total, another big milestone. So I do think that they will continue to feed him the ball, but I do share the same sentiments with Jalen Wright and Ollie Gordon that I would like to see them get the ball more, right? And see what you have. Same idea as the rest of them. Like we think we know what we have with Jalen Wright and Ollie Gordon. Maybe the coaching staff already does. Like we each of them have had their opportunities throughout the year to be that number two, and I can't say definitively which one is the number two. And I don't know off the top of your head, and we can move to the next topic if you don't have anything here, right? But are there any other milestone marks over the next 2 weeks? Like I was looking at Zach Sealer, for example, and he's at I think it's 5.5 sacks right now, so he's not getting to double digits. I mean, Bradley Chubb, I think, has a chance to see it like 8.5 or something like that. Is there any other numbers you've been looking at that guys could chase over the last 2 weeks to give them a reason to play hard?
No, not numbers wise, surprisingly. And I'm usually not that the stats tell the whole story, and I'm not a box score guy. Like I love looking at them and I like
Right.
seeing the final numbers, but I don't associate that with what went on in the game. Right?
Right.
It's just numbers. But as far as Dolphins go, no, actually. So I'm sorry to disappoint, but
No, good.
no, I haven't actually dug in. I guess on the season numbers like usual.
Yeah. And so I'm not going to go backwards. So next thing we're going to talk about, I had something back for the Bengals game, but I don't I don't want to stay on that any longer. Um,
I don't blame you.
Sticking with the Buccaneers game, though, one thing we've talked about is that we want to try to start giving viewers players to watch, right? And before we get into that, just a reminder, I see that Cam Jordan's in the chat, Dundee Dolphin, appreciate you guys being in the chat. If you guys have questions, put them in there and we will answer any questions that we get in the chat from you guys. But again, as we get into the Buccaneers game, we want to try to give you some guys that aren't Dolphins players to look at. And we're going to, over the next 2 weeks, give you players from the opponent teams. And then as we keep doing this through the playoffs, just trying to give you some guys, some individuals to keep an eye on, from a Dolphins interest perspective. And I think you had two for the Buccaneers, Anthony. So I'm gonna let you give one, and then I have one, and then you can come back with your second one. So who do you want to talk about first in this Buccaneers game?
I'll start out with the easier one. Sean Tucker is a unrestricted free agent. Reason why that's easier is because I really like Miami's running back room. I think they have three guys that all um, fit properly together because they all do different things and their skill sets and size and all that vary. I would be perfectly fine running it back with those three. I have no issue with that. I'm also with you too. I thought it's kind of funny, but like we don't actually know who the number two back is. And that can be looked at as a good thing or a bad thing, I guess, depending on how you look at it. But yeah, Sean Tucker though, I mean, he kind of hit the ground running like 2 years ago, not this year, but the year before that. If you're a fantasy guy, you saw him blow up, I think, at New Orleans for just an absolutely monstrous day. And it was like, whoa, where'd that come from? And then he kind of had more success in limited touches. And then this year, he pretty much did it again in the beginning. And then, he finally kind of became like at least somewhat of a consistent um, playmaker for them. And yeah, I think whoever goes out and gets him is going to be a happy camper because I think that kid can play, man. And I remember watching a little bit of his Syracuse stuff during the draft process, and yeah, I mean it was pretty obvious he could play. I guess a little surprised at just how much boom he has, right? Yeah, like I said, again, maybe not necessarily a fit from Miami unless they decided that they want to spend a couple bucks and upgrade or something like that. But yeah, good player.
Yeah, and it's funny when you mention Syracuse, right? You and I have these conversations pretty often, and like certain things you say kind of jog your memory of stuff. And when you said Syracuse, I remember him coming out, and I remember I didn't watch him personally, but I remember that being a name that seemed to kind of be a popular name for the Dolphins that people felt like he would fit well into this zone blocking scheme. And then I went back while you were talking there, found it was the New Orleans game back in
Yeah.
2024. He had 14 carries, 136 yards, another 3 catches for 56 yards, 2 touchdowns in that
Yeah.
game. Clearly hasn't matched that again, but he did have a 100-yard game earlier this season against the Buffalo Bills.
Yes.
So yeah, depending on what they want to do with that running game, that would be a good one to keep an eye on. I like that one. So the guy that I had, and I haven't really watched him much this year. This is more a guy that I liked him coming out of the University of North Carolina. It's their third offensive tackle, their swing offensive tackle, Charlie Heck. He's a tall player at 6'7". I think he's a little over 300 pounds, like 310, 315. I liked him a lot coming out, and I forget where he was drafted. I think he spent a little bit of time with the 49ers, so he's got familiarity with the scheme. With the Buccaneers, I'm not sure how much he's played, but I think he's been their 6th offensive lineman. From a Dolphins perspective, I don't see him as a starting caliber player, especially, if you're returning Teron Armstead and Austin Jackson. But where I could see value with Charlie Heck would be, and we've talked about it on here. I talked about it in my preseason video. I like Larry Borum more as a guard than I do as a tackle. So if you bring Larry Borum back and you move him as a, more of an interior player with tackle versatility, and then you bring somebody like Charlie Heck in to replace your Kendall Lambs, your Keon Smiths is more of your swing tackle type player, then I think there could be value there. So that would be my guy to kind of watch this game when they go into those 6 offensive lineman sets with the Bucks. Keep an eye on Charlie Heck, see if it's somebody that you guys think that the Dolphins should kick the tires on this offseason. So go ahead, Anthony.
Do you happen to, I mean, anybody can go to the roster and find it, but do you happen to know his number off the top of your head?
I believe he is 67.
Okay. Just because I know some people, they won't think about it and all of a sudden it clicks if they see 67. Yeah, it's good. That's where the bell rings. But okay.
Absolutely.
No,
Yep.
noted.
All right. And then your second guy for this game.
The other one is, if you've kind of followed along with us, you kind of know that I'm a big advocate for the tight end position here. Kate Otten, somebody I really like. I think he's underrated. He's 6'5", like 247, I think he's listed at. So a bigger guy. I looked at some of his PFF stuff, and again, I feel like I have to say it. It's kind of like a disclaimer. It is not the end all be all of the Bible, and it's not perfect. But it is, it's something. It's a tool to use. I was a little surprised. I thought maybe he would be a better blocker, but again, this is without really watching the tape. So, this is just from afar. He's somebody that, I've kind of has caught my eye from time to time, and I have some intrigue there. So he's one that I probably will actually, as we move on towards the off season, we start doing it, probably will take a look at some of his tape just to see. And I would love to get your opinion too on the blocking aspect, obviously, and see if he's a fit. But I like him. I like him as a receiver. Again, I like the size. I'm looking for that 6'5", 6'6" kind of tight end more so than I am your 6'3" kind of guy. And the only thing I thought that was a negative was when I had pulled up the list of free agents, and I believe it was on Spot Track. His like market value was like $11.4 million, which I know Miami is, not even remotely close to being in the market for a player like that at that price. If that has any accuracy, then I could pretty much scratch him right off the list. But yeah, he's a guy that, again, when they play Sunday, like I know I'll be paying attention to a little bit more when, Miami doesn't have the football.
Absolutely. So I went back while you were talking there and checked on Charlie Heck. So he is 77 with the Buccaneers. He was 67 back with the Texans and the Cardinals, and then he spent some time with the Niners and now with the Buccaneers as number 77. So that's who you're looking for there. Kate Otten, as you were talking there, like the first question I was going to ask you was, how's his inline blocking? And as you said, something we need to keep an eye on more. I was looking at his receiving numbers, and he's averaging around 55 catches, a little over 500 yards a season, which is would dwarf any tight end productivity that the Dolphins have had. So I wouldn't be surprised if that market value that you talked about, because might have been Kyle Krabs had mentioned, how much number two like wide receivers are getting when they're only getting 700 or 800 yards receiving. Like the numbers are kind of wild, right? So as he hits free agency here, like a tight end cashing 500 yards, I could see him getting up into that range. And if he is a good enough blocker along with those receiving numbers, like he probably is going to get up there, because that's going to be a very, very coveted thing.
Yeah.
So staying on the topic of prospects, another thing that we want to start to do is to talk about some college prospects. And I don't want to, we don't want to sit here and overwhelm you with names. Like, we're not going to sit here, at least not right now, and give you top 10 for every position and tell you to go watch all these guys. Instead, my goal here is to try to identify some guys, especially through the end of the college season, that again, you can sit down and you can watch a game, and we can give you one or two players to look at and be like, yeah, like that guy kind of interests me when it comes draft season. So for me, my guy this week that I want to talk about is Duke offensive tackle, number 53, Brian Parker Jr. He is playing in the Sun Bowl on New Year's Eve at 2 p.m. And he plays right tackle for Duke. His NFL prospects sound a lot like former Duke tackle Graham Barton, because a lot of people are talking about him as converting to a center. Was on with the draft professors group, and was talking to Jerry Ostrowski, that used to play offensive line for the Bills. And he was saying that Bruno Fina, who is the son of former Bills offensive tackle John Fina, is the left tackle for Duke right
Wow.
now. So a little bit of, I don't want to say inside knowledge, but
That's
it's a
a
guy that
name.
Ostrowski is familiar with. He compared Brian Parker to, well, I guess it was kind of, I don't know, contradictory in terms of what he said, because he compared him to Spencer Brown from the Bills right now. But then he said that he thinks that his future in the NFL is as a center. And that's not the only place that I've seen him, projected to be a center. I think he's around 6'5", around 300 pounds. So he has solid size for a tackle. Looking at the notes that I had personally for him, right? Again, playing right tackle. So if we're looking to move on from Austin Jackson, somebody consider, or maybe, if he is projected to be an interior player, right? Maybe this is the type of guy that you can draft. You can have him start out at guard and then bump out if he shows he's capable of that. But felt like he had good technique, good upper body strength, played with solid leverage. I felt like he had NFL size for an offensive tackle. Not the greatest athlete, but good enough. And he, one of those guys that blocks through the whistle, does a good job, like gets that initial contact. And if he doesn't stay connected, will reset his hands and get back in there. Like, you don't see him just hit a defender and the defender slides off and makes the play. I feel like he could be a solid day one starter. And I think that one of the reasons that he may fall, and one of the draft guys that are out there early that what is it called? It's from a Bengals guy. I think like the Project Game Day draft guide. Good information for one of the early draft guys. But one of the notes they had in there on Parker was that he gave up 21 pressures and 3 sacks in 2025. So I need to go back and watch some of his more recent stuff. But experience, has over 2,200 snaps. Um, has played left tackle as well, so has that versatility. Did not allow a sack in 2024, so it'd be interesting to see what changed from 2024, where you don't give up any sacks, and then you go to 2025 and are giving up a bunch of pressures and a few sacks. So I don't know, just a guy to, if you're looking for a game to watch on New Year's Eve, check out that Sun Bowl, check out Brian Parker, and maybe somebody that could fit into this Dolphins scheme. So what do you got for college prospects to watch, Anthony?
I like that one. Yeah, position flexibility across the offensive line, and very important these days. So for me, yeah, there's a game on tonight. It's Hawaii versus Cal. and I came across Hezekiah Massis, and I'm not positive on the pronunciation of the name. Did my best there, but I can give a little bit of background on kind of what he like who he is. So he spent his first 3 years at FIU. This is his first year at Cal. He's a 6'1", 185 pound. He will corner. He will only play the boundary. Very, very few snaps doing anything else, slot or anything. It's been pretty much strictly boundary corner this year. 716 snaps. Um, right now, Trevor Sikkema, PFF guy. He is the 23rd corner on his board, 201st overall prospect, I believe it was. Um, this year, he's got five. I watched the only thing I could really find that was very game tape-ish, not just a highlight reel, was a game where they had broken down and watched the Oregon State game. In that game, he had a pick in the end zone, returned it 106 yards for a touchdown. He got called on kind of a questionable DPI that wiped it off the board. The next possession, he had another pick and ended up making moves all the way down. And I think he got tackled at like the 3 yard line. So kind of made up for it there. And he's got 5 picks on the year, 10 pass breakups. He's allowed 28 catches on 60 targets, and those catches have gone for an average of 13.2 yards. It's got 8 penalties, and the one negative that I did see pop up in the Oregon game that I really didn't like was missed tackles. I saw 3 in that game, and they were 2 of them were really ugly, and one of them I kind of was willing to accept. But he only had 8 all year. So I was like, okay, well, this is why, you typically try to watch the really good game, the bad game, and then, try to find maybe something in the middle or try to find, a competition, right, that you think is a good matchup or whatnot, right? You gotta choose which tape you watch wisely because you can't watch every snap of every player. There's not enough time in the world to do that. So again, from what I saw, yeah, I like the ball skills. I mean, for me, that's always been a big one for me. You and I were just recently talking about old Dolphins, and I brought up my boy Terrell Buckley, who is
Yeah.
I mean, second to none when it comes to ball skills. But yes, he will give up the big one, but I promise you, he'll get one right back for you. So yeah, again, he's the corner for Cal, number 5. Somebody to pay attention to. Again, they play Hawaii. I don't really think Hawaii has too much to write home about in that game, so it's not like he's going to have a marquee matchup or anything like that. But it's bowl season, and it's time for these guys to shine. So I'm curious. I might flip it on myself. Again, I've kind of stated I'm not a huge college football guy, but around this time it does get a little more fun to watch. So there's a little bit more of a chance that I will. And if I do, he's the guy I'm probably going to pay a little more attention to, considering we don't have much going on in the CB room. That's a guarantee to come back.
Yeah, I like that. You said it was the Oregon State game. Was that the one that you had watched?
Correct. Yep.
Yeah, so that was I was, just bringing up his stats, and I'm not gonna try to pronounce that name. I think that you did had a
Hezekiah.
good solid effort at it. So the Oregon State game was the first game of the season. So like you said, like it's not always good just to watch one game. So it makes me wonder whether, it was first game jitters. I mean, he came from FIU playing on a bigger stage.
Yeah.
And that, maybe cleaned it up from there. I also noticed that of those 5 interceptions this year, 4 of them came in the first 5 games, and only one of them was after that. So that makes me a little bit curious there as well. Like, did teams just start to avoid him, right? Or was there something else? But one other thing that I noticed, and this is something that you and I hadn't talked about, we didn't know who each of us were talking about before we hopped on here, is that Cal did play Duke earlier this year. So if you're listening to this and you want to see both these guys play, go see if you can find that California versus Duke game. And you can see Anthony's guy on the film. You can see my guy on the film and see if these are guys that, could play for the Dolphins coming up next year. So moving along here, big news this week was the Pro Bowl rosters being announced. They were announced yesterday, right? That was when they came out.
I think
So the
so.
Dolphins, yeah, it was either yesterday or the day before. It's fairly recent news. The Dolphins had one player named to the Pro Bowl, that being running back Devon Achane, very deserving. They had two players that were first alternates, those being Alec Ingold and Jordan Brooks, and then two other players being Jalen Waddle and Minka Fitzpatrick. And to keep this from being me speaking for 15 minutes and you speaking for it on 15 minutes, I think we both agree that Devon Achan was very deserving and that that was almost a shoe in that he was going to get there. So let's talk first about the guys that got first alternates, right? Alec Ingold, Jordan Brooks. For me, I mean, Alec Ingold, I think, was more of a default type selection. Like at this point in the NFL, there just aren't many fullbacks across the league. And it's not that Alec Ingold has played bad, right? There's just been enough that, I would not have had him. Well, all positions the same. Alec Ingold has not played at a Pro Bowl level. I can't say whether there are other fullbacks that I would have in over him, but that congrats to him, right? Great guy off the field, kind of has that recognition. I think he last year's Walter Payton Man of the Year for us, something like
I think
that.
so.
So
Yeah.
he's been out there a little bit in the public's eye. And then Jordan Brooks was a first alternate, like that. I mean, might not be the biggest snub for the Dolphins, and we'll get to what I think is that in a little bit, right? But Jordan Brooks not being on that Pro Bowl roster, it is a bit of a disservice to it, in my opinion. He has been uh, one of the best linebackers in the league this entire season. It's been consistent, right? It's not like, Patrick Paul, for example, started out the season really hot, was playing at a Pro Bowl level. And at this point, he's not playing bad, but he's not playing great either. So I understand why he didn't get it. But Jordan Brooks has played at a high level this entire season. And, being a first alternate is a nice recognition, but it's not quite the recognition that I think that he deserves. So, Alec Ingold, Jordan Brooks, your thoughts on those two being first alternates?
Yeah. Same kind of thoughts on Alec Ingold, man. It's very different than when Mike first showed up in Miami and Alec Ingold was used. Again, I'll never forget kind of very early on, first game against New England, he had Ingold run that wheel up the
Wheel,
sideline
yep,
until it just missed him by about, I don't know, 4 inches maybe. And for me, I was like, instantly just yes, like this is what I
right.
want, is all
New
weapons
weapon,
used.
yep,
Yeah, all right, all of it. Not a lot of people use it. It even goes back a little bit to like, the Marino days in a way, right? Where like, it's not just receivers. It was, a lot of Stanley Pritchett and Rob Conrad and Keith Byers and the
yep,
running backs. I mean, like he used everybody. If you were open, you got the ball. And I thought Mike was kind of just showing like, hey, I can scheme open and I'm willing to scheme open anybody if we can get the right matchups. Which again, sorry to go on a little bit of a tangent, but I appreciated that of the Brady days when, they would walk out there and they would be five wide and you would literally be on the field with Gronk, Hernandez. So you're looking two tight ends, you're looking James White and Pat, I think it was maybe James Devlin, or I don't remember the fullback's name, but they had a Devlin. He was
he
number
was there, yep,
46, right? And then like one receiver. So you're out there in like 22 personnel, and you could be in a big tight formation, and then all of a sudden he'd walk you out and go five wide. And I loved that because that's tough for a defense. So I thought kind of if McDaniel can give me anything remotely close to that, I'll take it. But bringing it back to today, yeah, it just hasn't been the same. Ingold's kind of just been like a sporadic player this year. Like the big thing, it wasn't Alec Ingold getting the running game going, even though he had his moments. It was a sixth offensive lineman. So agree with you totally that I think he's there by default. Probably by reputation and familiarity. There's not a lot, a lot of fullbacks, and I'm not even sure how many AFC teams even carry one.
right.
I'd be curious to see that. And then, Jordan Brooks. Yeah, man. I mean, that's just there's usually a couple of those every year. That one is borderline a crime for him to not, not get it. And I said something on Twitter, yesterday about the Pro Bowl and just how messed up I think it is to let the fans completely control that. I get that they're trying to make it interactive in a way or whatnot, and no, not for me, man. These guys, I think that they wear that like a badge of honor, and for that to be
Mhm.
completely decided by fans, which basically makes it a popularity contest, I think is unfair. But I think once he gets that all pro, because that is coming, like I mean,
Yeah.
there will be riots if he does not end up being the all pro. I think that'll ease his pain a little bit more, but 100% deserving of being the starter.
Absolutely. And then you're talking about Pro Bowls and fan interactions. Just a reminder for anybody that's out there watching, right? Let's get some questions in there, right? We like to hear from you guys. We like to, see where we can go with different topics versus just the ones we come up with. So if you have any questions about, the Dolphins or anything, right? If you got a Christmas question, put it out there for us. Like let's let's get some different stuff out there. So I'll give you a chance to talk first on the two guys that got third alternate spots on the Pro Bowl roster. So Jalen Waddle, Minka Fitzpatrick, let you go first on those two.
I again, I've been so tuned out on the Pro Bowl for the last what 8 years, decade. I mean, how long has it been like bad? So
Yeah.
I gotta say, man, I don't even look. I don't vote. I don't look at. I used to. I used to find that fun. I used to go to the NFL.com and put your guys in and vote for your. I don't do that stuff anymore. And I'm not even sure who got in over each of those. I could probably go through and guess. But yeah, I mean, I guess it probably sounds about right. I love what Minka brought this year, especially after the defense kind of settled in. And obviously know how much of a Minka fan I am.
So wide receivers was Jamar Chase, Nico Collins, Zay Flowers, and Cortland Sutton. And then they have it listed as free safety and strong safety. So the free safety that got in was Jalen Ramsey. And then the strong safeties that got in were Kyle Hamilton and Derwin James.
Okay, so I mean, if you're going to ask me, I mean, I know Ramsey made a couple plays early on in the season, and then I actually watched his tape of like his very, kind of not super thoroughly, but I did watch it. I thought he did a good job covering Tyler Warren in his first game that he had kind of moved to safety full time. But overall, I mean, I will try to remove as much bias as I can when I say this. I really do think that Minka had a pretty damn good year, as far as what he did, and especially when he was asked to kind of play quote unquote out of position and come up and play like nickel full time, which he has done. So it's not like it's completely out of position, but we're talking safety, and obviously he spent a lot of time up in the box playing man to man and flat zones and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, I think yeah, I mean Minka would get my vote over Jalen Ramsey again, and I'm not sure if there's anybody else maybe even more deserving than both of those guys. Um, but and then the other one, I'm sorry, was Waddle. Okay.
Wow, yeah.
I, again, especially the top three being the one guy that I would question, and I love him because I was on him as far as a prospect goes. Like a year or two before he even came out. I'm a huge Zay Flowers fan, but I think Zay only has like 2 touchdowns on the year, and he missed, I think, some time, or he really had like he had a good month or so where he was very, very quiet. So not sure if I were to look at the stats, I would see why he would get the nod over some others. But again, I don't put too much stock into it. Can't say I necessarily care all that much anymore. So what are you gonna
Yeah.
do?
Yeah. No, I agree with both those. And kind of the same stuff that you said there. Like I feel like Minka is probably more deserving than Jalen Ramsey. And something like that makes me wonder, if the records had been flipped, right? If the Pittsburgh was sitting here with 6 wins and the Dolphins were sitting here with what are the Steelers at 9 wins now, right?
Yeah,
After beating
so
the Dolphins
I
and then the
understand.
Ravens. Right. So I feel like that's one that may have been flipped just because of, public perception there. And then, I mean, wide receiver wise, I can't argue too much, right? Waddle sitting here hasn't reached 1,000 yards yet. So again, on a losing team, less than 1,000 yards, that's going to be a tough one to get him further up in the Pro Bowl voting. And that's going to bring me to the biggest Pro Bowl snub probably in the entire league. Like Aaron Brewer, like in it.
I will give
So the
up
two
my
centers
time
that
so you can get out everything you feel right now. I do not need to speak at all here.
so the two centers that made it in the AFC, Creed Humphrey, Tyler Linderbaum from Baltimore. Both are fine centers. I don't have an issue with those two guys. But we have seen year over year that Pro Bowl nods tend to be a year after what they should have been. And Aaron Brewer had a very good year last year, right? So I could have, seen a scenario where he dropped off a little bit, didn't have as good of a year this year, and still gets that Pro Bowl nod this year. But he hasn't done that. He has played even better this year than he did last year. And and he grades very well almost every single week for me. Does it for PFF as well. For me, had a bit almost a perfect grade. Came in at a 10.00. I only had one play the entire game that I had him partially negative. And then you go to PFF, right? And that's a well recognized metric, whether you agree with it or not. But they had him in a 91 for this week. And then you have Brandon Thorne, one of the most well regarded offensive line guys in the NFL, is saying that this is a they have the protector of the year that's going to be a new award this year for top offensive lineman, and he's talking about Aaron Brewer should be on the podium for that, right? So like it's not just me and you on this show, it's not just Dolphins Nation, it's not just it's not just Teron Armstead, a former player that played with him. Like this guy is getting national recognition everywhere across the league, talking about him being an all-pro center, the best center in the league this year, and he's not even an alternate on the Pro Bowl. Like, what the heck are we doing? Like, he'll get his awards. He's gonna likely be on the all-pro team as a center. He's gonna be in the running for that protector of the year. So he's gonna get that. But you talked about the Pro Bowl turning into a joke, and it has. Like it's been a joke on the field for a while, right? And they've gone to try to do some different competitions and stuff like that to bring a little more competitiveness to it without playing the actual game. But even the voting, and it's been bad, right? But it just there's nothing that they are doing that has taken the Pro Bowl into the right direction. It used to be a thing that these players would use in contract negotiations, talking about the number of Pro Bowls they made, and you still see it in the Hall of Fame conversations, right? That's something that they talk about, the number of Pro Bowls, All Pros, all of that stuff. So there is still importance to it. And I don't know whether it is the fan portion of it. Like you said, they're giving the fans too much weight in this. I think if you look across the Pro Bowl rosters, you probably do see a lot more playoff teams having representation than non-playoff teams. And that, I mean, in a way it makes sense because if you have more good players, right, you're going to have a better team overall and a better chance to playoffs. But I think you also keep fan engagement through the playoffs as well, right? So if they're using Twitter, for example, the tags and stuff, what they use for fan votes or something like that, right? You're going to have more of that from a fan base that is still engaged in what's going on with their team. So I can't make sense of it, but that for me is by far the biggest snub of the year, to not even not just not to be on the Pro Bowl roster, but you're talking there's at least 3 levels of alternates and he's not on there. Like, who the hell else do they have on there?
It's a good question, but yeah, I mean, this is why it's become a joke. This is why people I think that really know what's going on just have kind of just done away with it, right? Like I said, it says is it strictly a popularity contest? It's I don't know who these guys are. Let me check the numbers that they post like right next to their names, at least from what I can remember, right? It's kind of like how many catches, how many yards, how many touchdowns. It becomes a balance thing. And I'll go with him, For centers, I don't even know what's up there. Pressures, pancakes, and stuff so it's like, what? Somebody had a pancake more or
That's
something.
another
You know
thing.
what I mean? It's,
But you're saying that, and offensive lineman is a tough position to get that public knowledge, right? If Patrick
yes.
Paul had a great year and didn't make it, you could say, well, you don't see him. But every freaking week, Aaron Brewer is putting a highlight play out there. He is pancaking somebody
Yep.
25 yards downfield. Like, what more can this dude do? It's hard to interrupt you there.
No, it's okay. I see you're passionate about it, and I totally get it. Because we should be. It's in a way it is the fans' responsibility to get our guys in there, right? It's just, that's it's tough when you're a little bit older and you remember what it used to be like and how fun it used to be, and kind of to watch it get ruined. I compared it to the way NBA All-Star Weekend is ruined now. It seems like the only sport that's kind of got it all figured out is hockey. They're actually
Yeah,
improving, their
right.
All-Star kind of festivities. So yeah, tough pill to swallow. He's more than deserving, and I totally agree with you. He probably is maybe, the biggest snub across the league, because you're talking about a guy that is, I guess anything can happen, but I mean, I would feel pretty decent about saying undoubtedly going to be the all pro selection, right? Um, and then to be just not even an alternate in the Pro Bowl. Yeah, like I said, it just goes to show that fans, the ones that are doing it and your casual, normal, majority fan, just again doesn't look too far outside of their own team, and even that is a stretch sometimes. So
Yeah,
tough.
gotcha. All right. So as we close in on an hour here, going to try to wrap it up here soon, but we did get one fan question in there that I do want to get to. So from Cam Jordan said, not sure if you guys talked about it. How do you guys feel about Jordan Poyer saying nobody understood Anthony Weaver's defense last year? And since you do the defensive breakdowns, you're a little more of a defensive guy than I am. I'm going to give you first crack at answering that one.
So I saw it. I am aware of what he said. And then I know that Weaver kind of addressed it in his most recent press conference, and he kind of said like, well, that was because we had a mix of guys, and guys weren't really necessarily used to working together, or the style of defense. They're coming from all different kind of shapes and sizes as far as like what defenses are coming from. So he said he kind of understood why he could say that and why he would feel that way. I guess I kind of just roll with what Weave's opinion is on that thing, and maybe that's just him being a little more politically correct, right? And I kind of also just chalk it up to more BS coming from Jordan Poyer about a terrible, terrible year where he was flat out atrocious. And I wonder why you're even talking about us again. I mean, why is this a sore subject for him? Why do we continue to bring up the Dolphins? Like, you're in the middle of a playoff hunt, right? Like, you have important games left. We do not. Like, go about your business. Leave us alone.
Yeah, I agree. And I mean, it was brought up because he was asked a question. I think it was Tyler Dunn that had done an interview with him, and it was
Okay.
brought up. But again, like why not just say, that was the past, right? I did not have the greatest year there. Wish
Yeah.
those guys the best. And I do think that Anthony Weaver's response there was a very politically correct one because like we've seen Weaver in the past. Like Weaver does not like to say bad stuff about his guys, right? You can push him and he'll kind of brush it off, kind of deflect. But we've seen sometimes that like that alpha guy comes out and he's like, the big bad wolf, right? And I would
Yeah.
really like to see him come out that way in that answer with Jordan Poyer. For me, I think it's shallow, right? To go out there and to blame everybody else for you sucking last year, like that's just deflecting blame to somebody else. You had a bad season, Jordan Poyer, right? Don't blame it
Very.
on everybody around you, saying that they don't know what they're doing, right? If you're running around there like a chicken with your head cut off, is that because they don't know what they're doing, or because you don't know what you're doing and you're just trying to see ball, get ball, right? Like we've seen this defense succeed, right? The defense actually wasn't that bad last year, and we've seen other guys succeed this year in this defense, right? So what's the common denominator there, right? Like Jordan Poyer, right? Jordan Poyer has not played in any other defensive system than the Bills and the Dolphins. And if you didn't play well in the Dolphin system, is it the system or is it you? Like I've been kind of done with Jordan Poyer ever since that Bills game last year, where like he seemed like he did not want to hit a single Buffalo Bills player the entire year, right? Or the entire game. Did not want to hit stick his buddies. And then you get into a key moment of the game and their rookie receiver that you've never played with, that's the guy that you finally decide to light up illegally and lose the damn game for the Dolphins. Like, get out of here, man. Like
Questionable.
that's how I feel about the whole thing. But
No,
all
I
right.
totally get it. I'll just sneak this in real quick too. I get it, like you said. You know, if you're running and you're unsure about where to be in coverage, maybe you're a step slow. Listen, when you're coming downhill and filling a gap and you get, run over by a running back or made look silly, that has nothing to do with scheme, buddy. That's just you not making the play. And again, like certain excuses only apply to certain situations and only go so far. And yeah, it sounds like he's trying to paint that with a very, very broad stroke. So not buying it.
Absolutely. Nope. All right, so we're gonna wrap this up here on Christmas Eve. That's gonna finish up. We're focused on Fins. Huge thank you to everyone that hung out with us. You know, the question that we got, really appreciate that one. Big shout out to Anthony. You can find him on Twitter at Tino9322. You can find me on Twitter at OLCoachSmith63. We hope everyone has a great Christmas. Enjoy the time with your families. Stay safe, and we'll be back soon with more Dolphins talk and whatever else the football world throws our way. Appreciate you guys as always. Stay focused on Fins.